Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Sherlock Canton III, and we are continuing our coverage of the Disney Plus series, Agatha All Along, Episode 7. We are winding down the stretch here as we get to the close of this wonderful series so far. And this episode was no different. But first, patreon.com/MCUniversityPod, where you can get our bonus content. Jake and I recorded a subscriber mailbag that is out now. So if you want to listen to that and check that out, unlock and listen for $3. Get into the Discord for the same amount. Appreciate everybody for supporting. And of course, if you're looking at us right now, seeing all these wonderful faces on the screen, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the whole deal. So let's introduce the panel first. The super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to talk about this episode.
Wonderful. And of course, the key has been under the mat, and Rod always comes back, aka the black guy who tips. Rod, how you doing, sir?
Good, man. Glad to meet you. Glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. And for the first time in this series, friend of the show, favorite in the Discord, supporter, all those things, the wonderful Cecelia Stokes. Cecelia, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. I gotta say, though, right off the bat, I gotta defend my boy Jake from a couple of weeks ago when y'all went way too hard on him. As a peer in being a, I don't know, sucker. I mean, I'm still mad about the Daenerys thing. So, if nothing else, a show of solidarity with another.
In all fairness, shouldn't you actually believe in me and AC's ability to redeem ourselves from that moment and not even really be these bad people?
I don't see, advocating and showing camaraderie as denying your ability to grow and change.
Okay.
And I really welcome that character arc for yourself. So
All right.
It's all love. It's all love. It's all love at the end of the day. Oh my gosh, guys. I have to say, I was not expecting the episode that we got last night. I think there is a level of there's a lot of different ways that I can take this. But before I take it there, I do want to ask Cecelia, since you have not been on the show during this series, as I always ask, what have you thought of Agatha so far going into this episode?
I have loved this show. I mean, I say that about all of them, but there's a few things that I think this show's doing really well. First, I think that Marvel really shines with their seasonal stuff that kind of has a sustainability to it. So this has big rewatch value just based on that alone. But I think also, and hopefully we'll talk more about it tonight with this episode, with the way that the story weaves together. It's definitely a lot of strands that you are not quite understanding how they, come together until we get here now closer to the end. And I think that will pay off a lot in a rewatch. And I just love seeing a bunch of ladies being awesome, being a little bad, being, flexing their powers. I've really, really enjoyed all that. So no complaints from me so far.
Wonderful. And I feel like this episode is no different. I want to go back to something that Rod has been saying throughout the entire series as he's been on with us. And that part is he had hoped that Agatha was not just the main thing, that we got to everybody else and we were able to flesh these characters out and see what they are and see how they fit into this story and how they have a larger role to play. We've seen so far in this series them do that. This episode, however, takes it to another level. I think from a writing standpoint, I think a structure standpoint, the fact that this felt like a Rubik's Cube being deconstructed, I felt like watching this. Just kind of overwhelmingly mind-bending. The superlatives for Patti LuPone, I could go on all day about them, and I will. And more so than anything else, before I throw it to you guys, there's a philosophical level to this episode that just kind of spoke to me in the same way that the Loki series did as well when it comes to We talk about Loki's glorious purpose. We talk about the grander meaning of it all, and how somebody figures out who they are and what they ultimately mean to not only the world but to themselves ultimately. And what we see Lilia go through in this episode is all of those things. And it was just such a beautiful way of storytelling to kind of fit all the pieces that we missed. The callbacks to episode 3 and episode 4 were just wonderful, and getting an understanding of why she was going through what she was going through. That was just so fascinating to see. But Rod, I want to start with you on this. Just generally speaking, what stood out to you in watching this episode that I'm going to assume that you enjoyed it a lot? What made you enjoy it so much?
I mean, one, I've been waiting on the Lilia episode because I just knew they weren't gonna waste Patti LuPone like that. So she obviously delivered with the performance, but the writing was the part that blew me away. Was just the deconstruction of it, because obviously, like, it's a bit of a trope, like we've always seen, like, the character who's just feels like they're displaced out of time, and then there's always like a moment where you go back and they're like, okay, but if you put this sentence here and that sentence there, and they were always kind of making sense, we just didn't know it. But like the way they did it, like, it still got me, where I was like, oh yeah, she did say. And so I was enjoying
Mhm.
that. And then they were doing it in this episode, which is another thing I liked, like, where we don't see her talk to Shazir Zamada's character until like the end, but where we're like, so we're in her vision as like her point of view as being confused. And so I
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
the confusion and then figuring out the narrative, and then seeing, like, actually it really reveals how powerful a witch she is, because you realize in the big she had this laid out from jump for her, and as far as this episode goes, and seeing the solution and seeing how they were gonna get there. She knew all that shit from jump. And
Mhm.
like going back to go forward was just such a cool moment. So yeah, it almost felt like when you watch science fiction and they're doing like a time travel time loop episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this
Mm-hmm.
episode felt, even though they
Mm-hmm.
used like witchcraft and spookiness to deliver it. So that was what stood out to me.
I think what really made it work, though, because I think that non-linear storytelling can feel very gimmicky. Um, I'm not breaking any new ground here. Water's wet. But I think what made this good is that, this is going to sound so silly, we were experiencing it linearly from Lilia's perspective. We
Yes.
never broke her perspective. That it's not that at all times, because it was, I think at the beginning of the episode, I didn't realize that. I thought they were just doing something cheeky, but it's like, oh no, at all times we know the exact amount that Lilia does, and we only get the idea that she's experiencing it at a time when Jen says things like, "You already told me this," and then like
Yeah.
20 minutes later, we have the moment where she tells Jen, and so I felt like it helps it stay grounded, and it didn't feel like a gimmick because we've been seeing Lilia have these moments of losing lucidity, of having flashes and stuff like that. And now we get to see what it was like from her perspective, and it all makes sense. You're right, like it's like a time travel movie. It's like, honestly, what it reminded me of is like the moment in the great film Tenet, where we realize that the masked guy that he was fighting with at the airport is actually himself. Like, I'm like, oh, this has all been setting it up. And yeah, so I thought that was such a clever way of it was a clever way of showing her magic. That it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
that we can say that she experiences time differently, but how about we just put you in the driver's seat for a full episode where you have to experience time with her?
Oh man, it was wonderfully, wonderfully done. Cecilia, how about you? How did you experience this?
I think that the way that they were able to do the nonlinear storytelling works so well with the witchy aspect. So, you know, there's a whole thing. I'm going to really try not to be like, I'm a PhD student, but there's a whole thing about like linear storytelling that's a very sort of masculine like way of telling a story, and cyclical stuff. And this is like a long history of women being
Mm-hmm.
associated with cyclical things. So like
Mhm.
reproduction and cycles, and then also just the types of labor we do is very like monotonous and repetitive and things like that. And so there's a sort of cyclicalness. It's also even seen with, I thought it was really interesting. Rio being revealed officially as Death at the end
Yeah.
is also kind of pointing to Death being sort of part of that whole cycle. But I think that that was a really interesting way to, it makes the non-linearity of it feel truer to the tradition of, like, I mean, women, but also specifically witches. And I think Leah noted a few weeks ago how Lilia's character in particular always is like, this is why they think this about us. Like, she's kind of wanting to correct a lot of stereotypes. And so she has a very strong connection to sort of the practice of witchcraft. And she even says, you're my sister in the craft. And so she takes that very seriously. And so to have her episode be the one that is more about that, and like the tarot readings, which is about intuition and interpretation, and not about being able to, I don't know, logically predict or do something else with the next thing. It's all kind of like taking what's in front of you and making the meaning yourself. I thought it was beautiful and brilliant. And so the way that the episode came to me, it worked on my like heartstrings so nicely, and it kind of makes every episode up until this one, like, it all settled for me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the kind of like the incongruence or inconsistencies with the rules settled with this episode, and I was like, I get it. Like, this episode is telling us how to watch this show.
I think from an emotional perspective, I think for me, there's a level of pride that I saw Lilia have that in finding this out. And more importantly, kind of this chill that came to me when she had the realization that she was cool with dying. Like, this is it. I understand my meaning. My meaning is to help this coven, is to help these people move along with their lives. Even the line that she throws at Agatha when she calls you a coward duck, like that foresight, that was cool too. The way she talks to Jen, kind of like this sisterly to motherly type bond that she has with Jen throughout the series, and going to protect her at the same time. That realization that you can't control everything, because really throughout we see throughout this series she's basically been trying to hide. I think there was something along the lines of seeing the hermit card earlier, where when Agatha and Billy find her at the beginning, she's hiding because she wants to control the idea that she's seeing all of these things and can't get a handle on them, so she wants to kind of hide who she is. But ultimately, part of that self-acceptance that she has to find allows her to do everything that she needs to do. And honestly, that has to be, from her perspective, just a very horrifying thing to have to go through when her previous coven is lost to a fever. She deals with that aspect. She comes into this new situation. And while all of these things are going on, she's losing people and she's losing time because she's going back and forth. She even has the wherewithal to put the sigil on Billy. And this is all while dealing with all of this shit. Which, if you put into perspective, this is an incredible person. This is a person, a very loving person, a very caring person, who still at the end of the day needed to find that self-love and that self-purpose to be able to get through to the end, knowing that she was going to die nonetheless. And to me, more so than anything else, that's what I talk about when the Loki glorious purpose thing. And regardless of how this ends for you, knowing that this is what I have to do and realizing that, and more importantly, feeling enlightened doing it, that was cool. That, like, just that story, her story is just so well done. And the reason why I had said earlier, like, I think Rod's point about, like, in order to make a series like this something more than what it is you have to have these other characters mean something bigger to the story. Because it could easily have just been an Agatha romp for 8, 9 episodes, and we could have enjoyed it. We would have had a great time or whatever. But buddy, when the MCU is cooking, they do this where you care about the characters and you care about their lives and what happens to them. Like when Alice figures out the stuff in episode 4. That's important. That matters. So it makes when she dies more important. Lilia is now built into this person that a character that you are extremely interested throughout this entire time. And now we get to this point where we learn everything about her and you're like, "Yo, I get it. I empathize. I understand." And yet she still has to find the way to be comfortable with dying at the end, knowing that she's doing the right thing. And that to me is so cool. And that's why, like, Jack Schaffer, everybody involved in the show deserves an Emmy for this shit because this was fantastic. And the end of soliloquy there. But is there any particular, I want to get into Patti specifically because if there's a way to go out in this series, buddy, there's so many superlatives I would love to give, but Jake, I'll throw it to you. Just like analyzing her performance
Yeah.
and the things that she did, please talk to me. What you got?
I think that it was so empathetic to a thing that is not real, which is someone experiencing time and jumping way. And I feel like you can imagine an actor of her stature and of someone who, like, honestly, like, people talk about like theater legends. Like Patti LuPone's film and TV acting career is not very long. She only has like 30 credits on IMDb, and she's been a working actor for 50 years because she really just is on stage all the time. And you could imagine almost that person not taking this part of the story seriously, not taking the magic element seriously. But she plays the confusion and the frustration and the pain that comes with living life in this way so real, especially when she talks. The thing that I think was the most painful thing is when she talks about the fact that it had gone away and now it's back. And in a way, it's like, oh, it's back because she's with a coven again, that there are people she cares about again. And her journey through this episode of hating the fact that it was back to then realizing that it is an asset that it's back was beautiful. I think that she really, like, it is a tour de force performance in this episode. It's the type of thing like that I'm really. It's why you're glad that Kevin Feige has the casting magic that he does.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Hallie Finn, obviously. And I'm just so glad that she's in the show. I do have a thing to relate though, because I did ask. Last night I asked Leah Marillo Thomas if she'd be available in the episode. She's not. She's currently seeing Venom 3, but she did say that she wanted the world to know, quote, about Patti. She's not mean like everyone thinks she is. So she's not a mean person, apparently. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Cecelia, like, I guess if you could put into words how you receive the performance specifically, because I think you're not gonna there's a translation level emotionally that you have to have in order to get this over to people and get this kind of universal response that I've kind of seen everywhere about how people felt about this episode. So if you could give me your perspective on what you saw from Patti here.
I think that it gets you right off the bat with the first. So we started the episode, the kids came down, we had to pause it. And so it like paused on that opening frame where it's just kind of, it's the camera it's zoom in on her face. You just see her eyes. And so I was like looking at that for a really long time because I was trying to figure out what was going on. And so starting off with kind of with her face, and she looks concerned, but not taken off guard. And when at the beginning of the episode, I didn't understand. I was like, then you realize she's falling. I couldn't understand why she seemed to be sort of okay with this. And then that shot of her falling in the dress in slow motion was so beautiful. And that set kind of the tone for the rest of it for me. And then the way that she was able to she beautifully balanced this sort of like madness or mad woman sort of trope that is associated like with witches a lot and with women for a long time. And that was my biggest issue with Multiverse of Madness it was like Scarlet Witch read a book and went insane basically. And I still, that's my one thing with Multiverse of Madness that I still get like,
Yeah, there's
I don't
a lot of folks, especially women, who feel that way. Yeah.
that I mean at the end of the day we stand Scarlet Witch, but I don't love the like a book made you insane
Right.
sort of thing.
Too simplistic.
And so I thought that she did such a beautiful job of navigating that like could be perceived as madness with tenderness
Mhm.
and with empathy. I think they did a good job with laying those seeds throughout the episode. So, you know, someone would be like, "Oh, you already told me this." So we kind of are let in on the fact that there is some sort of like thing happening. It becomes clear that we're following essentially her consciousness as she experiences, you know, awareness throughout the episode. And that makes it a little less, I guess, uh, strange for us and for her. So it gets kind of the viewer's emotions quickly on the same page as her own. And so you can really like lock in and just follow her along. I was very impressed by how she was able to do that.
Yeah, you find yourself rooting for her. Just rooting for her to figure it out. Because there's this level of self discovery. Jake and I were answering a question on the subscriber mailbag yesterday, and it talked about we essentially came to the conclusion with each other in agreeing as far as how we treat people and how to be a little nicer, and how that kind of translates to what the world is and how we see it. And it's so it's so easy to not be nice. It's easy to kind of, as we see the world spiral as it tends to do all the time lately, it's easy to just be like, I don't want to put myself out there to try and be helpful, and I only want to control what I can control. The aspect of Lilia wanting to stay away, and then this episode coming in and just realizing like this is not just for this is not just for me. This is for the people that I know and that I want to help out. And there's something to the level of giving up the control, giving up the idea that you can control something, and then getting to the point where you just be and just let things go as is. You're following the time however the intuition and the foresight goes. You just follow it, and you let it lead you to the natural conclusion. And more importantly, you feel like, yo, when she says I loved being a witch, man.
Because the thing too is like she didn't feel that way at the beginning of the show. She seemed like
No,
she was really not into it, and
no.
that she was kind of you know, not proud of it. Like so she was like she was defensive about being a witch, but she didn't seem like she felt almost like it was a burden that she was a witch.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. And so like when she says I love being a witch, like you got that sense of the realization that, yo, I'm going to be okay. Regardless of how this turns out for me, I'm going to be okay cuz I realize there's more to this than me having this control over what my life is and what destiny is, and ultimately like that's the thing that we as humans all struggle with, our
Mhm.
ambitions, our desires, the things that we need to do, the things that we feel like we have to do. And sometimes it just isn't meant for you that way. There are
Mhm.
some things that you just have to go through. And the part of the witches throughout this show, these episodes, going through these trials, facing their trauma and having to deal with it head on and learning to go through that, even with them dying to a degree, you still find the levity in them figuring these things out. And that's why, like, as I talk about this, like, it really kind of blows my mind at how the writing gets into the human condition. And it's like this shit is kind of, and like I don't mean to be hyperbolic about this, but like, yo, like philosophically speaking, this like made me really want to think about how you view everything and everyone and how you live your life and things along those lines. But go
Yeah,
ahead,
and I
Cecilia.
think I'm sorry I had to like interrupt, but
No, go
I
ahead.
really loved, to Jake's point, that she seemed throughout the series so far to see being a witch as a burden, and then she kind of feels defensive about it. She's struggling with this burden of representation or over representation, that
Mhm.
witch equals blank. And it wasn't until she could really like confront her feelings with it, and her feelings about being a witch actually have everything to do with the relationship. And so it's so much less about like which looks like this, does this or not, and like challenging that idea or not. It's actually about the sisterhood, the community. And I guess like I've been also watching this show thinking, in the background we've got a presidential election that's happening, and like women's rights and women's concerns are so much on the forefront. And so the
Yeah.
burden of representation that women and gender nonconforming people and queer people are feeling right now is so intense, and it does make you feel very, very defensive. And um to watch somebody also struggle with that and remember like the reason that I do participate in, I don't know, I think democratic civilization is probably at an extreme, but like the reason I do
Mhm.
participate in things with others is because that is where a lot of those tensions about who I am and how people perceive me find relief, they ease.
Mhm.
And watching her go from that tension to that ease throughout the series, but especially in this episode, is, I think, is exactly kind of like what you're talking about, is really beautiful. I'm not gonna cry, I promise.
No, it's. I mean, it's. This is a totally safe space. I think from an emotional standpoint, you can understand why you could feel a kinship to that type of struggle, because it's like you're not just talking about uh the representation. You talk about like whether it's older women, hashtag, also hashtag watch your gender, salute to Patty for
She's
doing
hundreds
that.
of years old.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
real
hell
washed.
yeah.
she's
She's
out here,
awesome.
the enlightenment part there. And honestly, just women in general, like ostracized women. We talk about witches and how they're viewed and
Hmm.
things along those lines, and how these women have had to deal with curses and other things, lost children, things
Hmm.
that happen to women all the time, are happening in this show. Issues with their moms, like that, the stuff with Alice, the curse, like all that
Hmm.
stuff is. And this is when you have a woman leading a show about women, then it's great to get that perspective, and to get it in a way that makes sense, but also is heartening to see, because the growth of these characters throughout these 7 episodes have been kind of amazing to watch. Rod, I wanted to ask you this part specifically about Lilia. What was your favorite scene in this episode? Was there like a particular thing that kind of you were like, damn, this thing kind of hit? Because
well,
to me, it's like that realization at the end. But
well,
you
I
go ahead.
have
I want to
so
hear what
many
you say.
things I wrote down while y'all were talking. The first,
Yeah, yeah.
but if I have to pick one moment, it's definitely when she like completely just flipped the table on the Salem 7. That was gangster as fuck. Like when she was
Yeah.
just like, the tower inverted,
Yeah.
blam! Everybody was, it was like, oh my god, oh my god, and I love
Boom,
how they
mic drop to close the episode.
and I
Yeah.
love how they cut away before she gets the swords,
Hmm.
so like it's this triumphant moment of like with the camera work, it's almost as if she's ascending, not descending or whatever. But it was just
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
beautiful.
Hmm.
But okay, so Patti LuPone, the thing that she did the best was she played this straight. I think in a show this
Mhm.
funny and kooky and spooky, a different actor would have
Hmm.
made a different choice to be like, it's gonna be
Hmm.
like it's funny that I'm so confused and it's, but
Yeah.
no, she plays it
Yep.
like when
Hmm.
actors have like Alzheimer's or something, when they have a character that has like Alzheimer's, she played it like that, where it's like I'm a little
Mhm.
confused, I'm a little nervous, and the thing that really sets this episode off is not just her embrace of like I'm going to be the shepherd of this flock to their next destination, and I know I won't make it with them. The thing that actually sets it off for me is the trust she puts in Jen. Because Jen has a
Mhm.
Yeah.
decision to make where Jen could go to fuck home, And listen, when there's some
Yeah.
scary shit happening on TV show or movie, I'm always rooting for the black person to go home. I'm sorry, maybe that's selfish, but we got a
Oh,
long
don't blame me, man.
history
Yeah.
That's
of
right.
dying
I
in
feel
these
you.
That's right.
situations. So
I
so like
feel you.
Jen was looking at that door and I was like, Jen, like go back to the basement, girl. This ain't your fault. But I love how like it's about her putting her faith in Jen, and that's what makes Jen put her faith back in her. Like, and in the idea of this coven and moving to the next thing. So like that's what really humanized the whole thing for me was it was the empathy, not just the the returned empathy. The other thing too is all the flashbacks to her being a little girl and like
Yes.
her maestra like guiding her through this and like telling her like this is a thing that is a responsibility and it's a burden, but like it's your gift and it is your fate and you need to embrace this. And you could just see like that weight on that little girl's shoulders and like whoa. And of course that little girl grows up to be someone who's like, I don't want to do this. Like that's
Yeah.
great. Like what you are burdening me with, it does not sound like a cool
A
thing.
lot to ask.
But
Yeah.
then that realization years and hundreds of years later being like, oh no, this is why that's so important and why this is cool. This isn't a rejection. The other thing y'all kept hitting on too that just I feel like she embraced anti-witchness. You know what I mean? Like, you know how you have like anti-blackness where it's internalized. Like we all live through different shit where it's like,
Yeah.
for example, for me, I remember I had a job one time and so I had watermelon in the break room. And I got to my cubicle like second out of everyone in my department, and I was the only black person. And some dude came by, and he's like, Rod, you want some watermelon? And I was like, fuck you mean? Like homie, don't do that. We at work. Don't get fucked up. And so I knee jerk was like, no, why would I want watermelon? That's ridiculous. Chill out. And I go to work. Everyone comes in after me. And one after one, they all get a slice of that fucking delicious looking watermelon. And I'm just looking at everybody like, I should have, like, this isn't a race thing at all. I should have if I would have just not even been thinking about that, I would have delicious watermelon. And when I tried to sneak in the break room later, the watermelon was gone. So now I done talked myself out of watermelon that I could have had that every coworker in my building had got to get. And I feel like that was Lilia this whole time. Like Lilia's shit is like, whenever they mention something where it's like, yo, this powerful thing or this iconic witch, that she's like, that's what they be thinking about us is that we gonna turn green or whatever. And so to see her go through this trial where it was everyone in the different costumes, it was like probably the witchiest of the things, and to see her step into that role, especially when she starts dealing the cards and realizes the fake out, it's my trial. It's literally about me. I'm the subject of this thing. It was just so powerful, and Patti just did that thing. So I would say somewhere between her flipping the 7 or just her when she realized when the ceiling won't stop going, but she's dealing the cards and she never like really pauses. Like they're freaking out and she's just like, I know I'm gonna get it in time because this is my destiny and I got this shit. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna get y'all out of here. That shit was so fucking gangster.
Yeah, man. Well, I got a question for Roderick A. Smith because if we think about the whole flipping situation,
Yeah.
now I think it's very fair to say that salute to Lilia, she handled her business, but also there's still 2 Salem 7 members out there. So did she really, if I were to ask Roderick A. Smith, what would he say as far as you got 5 out of 7? So it's a decent percentage,
Right.
but it ain't everybody. So could you really call it clutch? Could you really call it finishing the deal?
All right, let me see if I can do this. Hold on. This is on trying to First of all, I love Lilia. We go way back. I respect the hell out of that sister. Okay, she's a good witch. You know, they say that the witch of the East is based off of her because she literally the blueprint for these witches out here. Okay, so take this is with no disrespect. Okay, she's been getting it out the dirt, out the mud for hundreds of years. However, 5 out of 7 with that's all you got for it's the Salem 7, not the Salem 5. Last time I checked, they was depending on you to get everybody up out of there. So they just supposed to move on. You gonna tell Jen she got next? What about having now? You got to take care of these other entities out here. Okay, we appreciate you doing the tarot cards and all that stuff. I like the tarot cards. It's good. She was dealing that thing. It was like a space hand. That was absolutely, an amazing performance. But if you ain't getting all the witches, then I don't understand how the series over. Last time I looked, we still got 2 more games to go before you get to the championship. Now I'm supposed to look over here at Jen. I believe Jen already had her trial. You the future? I can't respect that. This is why, in my opinion, Scarlet Witch still the greatest witch of all time.
See, and this is why.
Thank you, Roderick A. Smith.
Thank you, Roderick A. Smith. For
Snaps. Snaps.
Appreciate that. Wow, wonderful stuff there. Wonderful stuff. By the way, Billy and Agatha were also in this episode. Mm-hmm. So there was some stuff that had to go on with them as well. I think I love that they are simultaneously attempting to work together, but there is this heavy tension between the two of them that their back and forths are just full of so much snark on Agatha's side, which Catherine Hahn, like, just the little zingers that she'd just be throwing out is just tremendous. Cecelia, let me ask you, like, in terms of what we see between Agatha and Billy still, he has to answer, he's trying to figure out who he is. Now, we think that it's the I gotta find my brother situation for him, but there seems to be a little bit of an identity issue with him as far as that's concerned. How did you read Billy in this episode as he and Agatha are going through a trial that they clearly had no understanding of what they were trying to do there?
First, that part was hilarious when Agatha's like, fuck this, we're just gonna put these cards, none of this matters anyway. Why are these swords still falling on us? I don't know, but surely there's no right way to do it. So that was hilarious. But I think something that I found really interesting with Billy, because I know, like, we had talked about, y'all, sorry for the parasocial slip up there. Y'all had recently talked about how Billy, the twist recently was that he's not looking for Wanda, that he's looking for his brother instead. And how, that makes a lot of sense. And in this episode, you even get him be like, denying that Wanda's his mom, because he's like, no, I have a mom. And that first was like that was just interesting to me, that I thought that he would have more pride in being the son of Wanda Maximoff, and he was like, nope, fuck her, I don't like her. And so there already is some groundwork laid there that he does feel a connection. I think it goes beyond obligation to the people that have been raising him for the past few years. And I did think it was really interesting that in this episode, when she asks, what is it that you want, or what are you looking for? I was expecting him to ask about Tommy, and he goes, am I William or am I Billy? And so that, I don't exactly know what to make of it at this point, because and I think this is it's in large part because outside of the show, in the world that we live in, we're like, it's Billy Maxima, or Billy's here, we've got Wiccan. And for him in the show to be like, pause, time out, I don't know that I am, was, I think, actually brings you back into to the story, and it kind of gets you out of looking at like, oh, are they going to be doing this, and is that what are they going to be doing long term, and kind of all the external stuff. And it's like, no, this is about right now, this kid really struggling with who he is and who he should be, and figuring out what, how to bring maybe those two selves together and kind of feel his way through that. So
Because at what point does he be? Because like, it's not a question of like, if is he literally Billy or is he literally William? It's like he's been living in the body of William Kaplan and has been living life as William Kaplan. The world has been treating him as William Kaplan for over 3 years. He clearly is fuzzy about the memories of his life as Billy. And so what is one's identity? Like, at what point is him faking being William Kaplan? Like, because what makes you wonder is, like, if he actually had just lost his memory, does that mean he's not William Kaplan? No, he still is William Kaplan. So, like, what is a person? And of course, these questions have no answers. But I think that that's actually what's going on. It's not literally like what's in his soul. Like, he has the soul of Billy Maximoff, but like at some point he has the body of William Kaplan, he has the life of William Kaplan. And I'm just talking in circles. So once again, there are no answers to these questions, and that's what he's searching for. He's searching for a thing that can't have an answer.
Well, and for all intents and purposes, he's like, what, 3 years old? Like, Billy Maximoff was Billy Maximoff for a day and a half. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how the math works on that, because I've always wondered that too. It's like they could have a great like behind the scenes or extra about the lives of those twins, because like you're like, are y'all 3 weeks old? Are y'all like, when she creates you out of nothing, do you come with years of memories? And so do you are like, how are you experiencing time as well? It's such a great question to ask teenager. I'm sorry to go back.
Knowing Billy, of course. No, knowing Billy as we do though, and we talked about it last week a lot, is how empathetic that he is to other people's causes. So I can imagine where his birth mother is the one who kind of terrorized a bunch of folks and is looked at as this villain, kind of doesn't want to be associated with that. So there is that aspect that is something interesting for him to try and
Agatha,
figure out.
At that point, Agatha's kind of needling him with it, which could also explain the response of like, like, I'm pushing away from it, because when he revealed his powers on the road, it felt very Scarlet Witch to me. You know what I mean? Like, like the hand movements, the only thing was the color was different, but even the crown, like, it felt very Wanda Maximoff to me. So like, buddy, you can say what you want to say, but like, when you out there flicking people off the road into the mud, you feeling very Scarlet-y.
Yes, and the fact that kids, when it comes to their parents, we're always trying to avoid becoming our parents. So there's a lot of that going on too. So when, to Rod's point, you see those exact same, like, when I'm mad, I could put you in a really dangerous position as far as your life is concerned. I think the realization of what that is probably scares him. So that is something that he's going to figure out. And then we talk about the age and being like really young. That's kind of a lot to deal with at the same time. So
and we have the whole bit. Oh, sorry. We had the whole bit about whether or not Wanda's alive, and we get the line that I believe caused 77 deaths among Sapphic Stan Twitter, where Agatha says, if you want a straight answer, don't ask. If you want a straight answer, ask straight lady or something like that.
Yes.
So rest in peace to those people. But that was very funny.
Oh man, but I think there is such a, and I think to Rod's point as far as Agatha needling him, it's amazing that she has kind of stayed so steadfast.
This episode, and I have to rewatch. I really like, it's making me want to go back and rewatch episodes, but this episode felt like they purposely was showing that Agatha is the antithesis of Lilia. Like, where Lilia decides, like, I'm embracing everybody. You guys are y'all my chosen family. I'm here to help y'all on whatever way to help. Agatha is still so selfish. Like, when she was just putting the cards on the table in a random order, I was like, yo, it's like she looks at the trial like, look, one of us gonna die. Let's just get to who dying so I can open the door and get the fuck out of here. It was so crazy. It was such an
So
insane
true.
thing to
So
do.
true.
And she's not showing any character growth or like embracing
No.
of like this family. And I know,
Nope.
look, we got 2 more
Mhm.
episodes. Maybe she will. But like low key, I kind of love this choice as like a show to be like, she's fucked up, y'all. Like it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like maybe everyone's heart will change her at some point, but she didn't get fucked up tonight. She been fucked up for a
No.
long time. These other people kind of
Right.
lost their way. Like Jen had her magic
Mhm.
taken. Lilia didn't want
Yeah.
the power of knowing all this destiny and future shit. Agatha's the only one that's like, no, I got my powers taken because I was trying to like fucking take over. I was trying to take
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch whole shit. So like, I like that
Yeah.
those moments between her and the
Mhm.
team because her selfishness
Mhm.
actually keeps cooking and it makes the show better when she's cooking like that in this trial that they both should have realized like this is Lilia trial. I don't know what the fuck we gonna do
Yeah.
if Lilia don't show up. Like instead she's just like throw some cards around, fuck it.
But this is
And
Mhm.
actually, but this is actually the best part of what you're saying, Rod, because we've had this buildup of Agatha basically using everybody else as a meat shield throughout. We are now at the point where there are not many meat shields left.
Yeah, it's musical
So
chairs.
now, now she got to face Rio. She
Mhm.
got to face death. And what does that mean as far as Billy is concerned? Like, is there an actual kinship? Is this needling for the sake of needling? Or is this some actual care? And also, I do feel like we have to, at least in my opinion, I need to see a resolution to what happened with her son.
I
Because
think I think we're gonna get that.
without that,
There's
it's very important that we get that. So we get that kind of like, yo, this is why I made this choice, and this is what ended up happening.
What I now really believe 100% because it's a theory I floated earlier, and Billy voiced it in this episode. Is I think either Agatha got a lot of help from someone else when she did the Witch's Road, or she's never done it. Because
Yeah.
not only is she being
Mm.
selfish when she's just throwing the cards down, she is not.
Mhm.
Even if she had actually been on the Witch's Road, but she was a selfish person, she would not be, I think, so callous because like she doesn't know what she's doing in a way that suggests that she's in over her head, but she
Yeah.
doesn't know how. She can't be in over her head because she's Agatha Harkness,
Right.
and so I think that like that is the thing I think we're going to confront is she's off her game. And she keeps pretending that she's not. I think that's part of why she's needling Billy. But whether or not she has any change of heart at all, her not being at the top of her game is going to have to come to a head. And I think it probably will with something with Rio. I think those storylines will both resolve themselves together. But yeah, she's clearly like
and
she's
Billy
hiding
is seeing
something
through
big.
her, and Billy sees through the bullshit. Like
Yeah.
like
Yes.
each
Mhm.
episode he gets more progressively like you kind of full of shit, right? Like
Yeah.
the more rooms we go to, the more I realize you don't be going to these rooms. Like you just kind of making this shit up, and I don't like. I love how he brings up like how when he initially saw her, he was thinking like,
Mhm.
oh, this person is gonna guide us to the like
Mhm.
her powerful magic and know-how and knowledge. And then
Mm-hmm.
now he's just looking at her like, man, what are you doing? You're gonna get us fucked up.
Yeah.
And the fact that they keep losing a witch every episode, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone can look around the room and see like everyone's not making it to the end. And I think Billy is completely prepared for this. Like, it's gonna come down to me versus you at some point, and I have to be prepared to do what I got to do because clearly you're selfish and you're not learning and you don't see us as a coven or a family or any of that shit. All those illusions are gone.
Yeah.
And I think it's only 3 of them left. And like you said, Rio's out there somewhere as death. So like when she's coming to the party, she's coming for her body. She's not coming for none of this trial bullshit. So yeah, and 2 Salem 7. So like, yeah, you still got problems coming around the corner, but I really appreciate that. And I do want to mention Teen's Maleficent fit was slaying. It was really
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fits were all great.
God.
the fits were amazing,
Incredible.
but that Maleficent fit, that joint was fire.
Yeah.
His makeup, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah, that shit was cooking.
immaculate.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
You know,
100%.
the
Yeah,
costume people
yeah.
was feeling themselves too because they had the character
Yeah,
look in
they
the
were.
mirror, like the characters like, I'm killing this shit. I was like, yeah, y'all took a moment for yourselves right there.
Well, and like Catherine Hahn, you could tell because she had that fucking big ass nose, and she would she kept doing a bunch of she'd turn to the side and do a bunch of profile, dramatic profile things. I thought it was so funny.
The practical effects that they've chosen to use on this show have just taken it to another level, and it's just such a great juxtaposition to the series that comes up on the show every time I'm on here. But Secret Invasion, where you're just like a guy sitting in a chair and you decide to CGI every single thing in the room, compared to this where it's like put a prosthetic nose on her, paint her green, give her a witch dress, like make this shit feel real and lived in it. Is it a little silly? Yes, but that actually makes it better.
What I'm really fascinated by is, because technically speaking, Disney does not own any of the rights to the film The Wizard of Oz. And so anything that they put in reference to The Wizard of Oz, this was the whole problem with the movie Oz the Great and Powerful. They can only use things that are in the book and not the movie. And so when they did Oz the Great and Powerful, they had to make a new shade of green because legally they couldn't use the same shade of green. And so I actually wonder if that came up again. Because obviously Wicked's coming out, and so Universal has the rights. So because I think it's like a darker shade of green. And I'm sure if I looked it up, it is they had to do that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why there's no Yellow Brick Road and Oz the Great and Powerful. There's no flying monkeys because those were all invented by the movie.
Damn, I did not know that. You be knowing shit.
The funny thing about that, though, which I love, is that that only happened because of copyright cases that Disney had against other people, and then so they got sued over that. It's like, well, sorry, sucks to suck. Because Disney did that a bunch with their fairy tales, where it's like the fairy tales were public domain, but they were like, but we invented this look, and so you can't use this type of dress, and so yeah, they got so
foisted on their own card.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's just a little dumb piece of trivia that I know.
Oh well, listen, Jake. You always provide us with wonderful little nuggets of information as far as that's concerned. There is a level of for me as we head into these last two episodes of we now get to the relationship between Rio and Agatha, and we're gonna get to the heart of that, and that fascinates me so much because I feel like we're about to get an Aubrey Plaza showcase over these next two. Because it seems like that's what we're getting to the chicken, ladies and gentlemen. I just like we get into the chicken, and that's what excites me about having a 2-episode finale in one night. It's gonna be so fascinating to see their relationship and what does it ultimately mean. What happened in the previous iteration of these the road and the trials? Is this just some silly game that Death is playing? What is the meaning of it all? Where does Billy fit into that? How does poor Jen, seemingly destined to die, what is her role in this, and
it's
how does
so
that
interesting
go?
with Jen because they say like Lilia tells Jen she's the future.
Yeah.
And the future to me doesn't feel like you're the next to die. I hope. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I hope it means she thinks Jen's making it out of this thing.
She could find a way.
Yeah, like some kind of way. Especially when Jen was offered this off ramp and didn't take it. It feels like the reward for that being like, and so you die like next time. It's kind of like, damn, you should have took that off ramp. And the other thing too is it made me think about the trial in the first episode that essentially Jen is the one that gets them out of that. But was that really her trial? I wonder. You know, because Jen also has this backstory of this man taking her powers with like some weird science shit. We really haven't seen her get to go back through that. And if you remember in the second one, it's Miss Hart who dies, and Miss Hart was supposed to be the Green Witch. They didn't have a
she
Green
dies
Witch.
in episode 3.
Yeah. You know, like she's shown dead in episode 3, right, or something like that.
Right.
Whatever.
Yes.
But like, it's after they get out of the trial where the water was coming up and they get out the oven, right? That's when she died, right? Coming down that slide. Yeah. So it just makes me wonder, is Jen
she does
actually going to have
Billy,
a trial
too.
next? Is like episode 8 going to actually be Jen having a trial rather than that counting as her trial? Because why is she still around? And we know each episode is a trial. So I don't know. And it feels like the last one will obviously be Agatha's. or like some type of showdown between Agatha and Billy. So or maybe it's Billy's trial. Anyway, I have a lot of questions, guys. I have more questions than answers. I just need to bring those up and get them out my brain.
No, I think they're all very fair questions to bring up because I think ultimately Jen's role, I think I'm glad that you mentioned that it's like she's the future. What does that ultimately mean for her? Is she going to find her way out of this? Is she going to be somebody, because remember she did help save Billy earlier in the series. So is she a life giver perhaps instead of a life taker awayer? So like that part is fun to me. We know Billy's going to keep going, so ultimately what is the meaning for him? I don't think he's gonna find his brother at the end of this. Not yet. He might get an inkling to it, but I think I'm really now convinced after seeing this past episode that his identity is something that he will.
Yeah.
Figuring out his identity is the most important part of what this trial and the road is for him. So that self discovery is important. And honestly, like Agatha, what does it mean for her? We talk about this lack of character development, but we kind of want to see what level does her son, seeing her son and having that taken away for the Darkhold being the type of thing that set her off and horrified her. There has to be an answer there that will give us some clarity as to why her character is the way that it is at this point. Because without that, it like while it's fun seeing her being as evil as she is, I feel like it would add so much color to
Well,
it.
also, I
And
think the
yes,
least interesting thing to do would literally be like she's evil the whole way and she gets what she wants. Like,
Yeah.
like if you end this series and she gets her powers back and everybody's dead, fuck them. That would be such a weird fucking ending. I was like, it would feel like a letdown. So I know they're not giving her like it's not just she's gonna get what she wants, but I just wonder what what these last two episodes look like because in many ways she's still kind of the antagonist of all this
Yeah, for
shit,
sure.
yes,
even though she's clearly the protagonist, quote unquote, of the story, she's of everyone else's story. She's like in the fucking way. So I really want to see how they write themselves out of that because it can't just be like, I'm back. Like what?
yeah, yeah. And
My
it's
guess is
yeah.
that
Go ahead.
she'll be faced with a choice, some sort of choice I think will come up, and it'll be between her and I'm trying to remember what the language is that about Nicholas Scratch that Jen warned about earlier. Did she say that Agatha killed him or sacrificed him?
Seems sacrifice was the
Sacrifice.
word.
Sacrificed. So yeah, like I mean, there's the likeliness too that he didn't die, that she like exchanged him for possession of the Darkhold, and I wouldn't be surprised if she kind of is like facing a choice similar to that again.
And I wonder if like also something where like maybe she would have to sacrifice Billy or something, and then it's then it really is a like, have you learned anything from this first go around? Like I could see something like that too, because that also gives you like a last second reprieve of like, okay, so she did change and learn some things. It just never looked like it, but she couldn't do this shit twice. So maybe we get something like that. I'm so fascinated.
Yes. Yeah, there's a desperate I mean, there's going to be a desperation from the idea that we already know that it's been established that she can't kill death. So that's a thing. And what type of fight are her and Rio going to have? And seeming how chummy they were earlier in the series, after they have such what a back and forth.
I mean,
I
was gonna say I wasn't looking to see them fight. That's not what I'm.
I was gonna say it'll start as a fight, and we know what works for them.
There was there's a tweet that someone put in the Discord. Let me pull it up. It was Ant put in the Discord. Put the episode on HBO. I want to see them fuck.
For real.
Yeah, and also like symbol.
No complaints there.
The L
Like
word.
the symbolism of it. I mean, the idea of wanting to embrace death in the MCU, at least in the comic books, has always been like a romantic thing. Sometimes, you know, like I remember
with
Deadpool.
Thanos. Yeah,
I read a lot of Deadpool and Lady Death. like whenever he gets so fucked up that it was like it was gonna take him a long time to recover, he was basically like brain dead or heart dead. They'd have these romantic overtures between him and Lady. Like he's like, I wish I could fucking die. I'm all my life is just suffering, and the sweet moments when I'm with you are the only moments that matter. And then, oh fuck, my body's healed. All right, well, I gotta go out and see what I can do to get killed again. And I wonder if there's something like that for these witches who live these long fucking extended lives that clearly they're not flourishing. All the witches on the path are like struggling, suffering, depressed, over it. And so it does make you wonder if like Agatha's relationship to death, which could also mean like rejoining her son, like what does that mean to her?
Yeah, because I think an important thing here is that we've been spending a lot of time with Agatha,
Yes.
and we know that she wants her power back, and we know more stuff about her past. But what is she going to do if she gets her power back? What is she looking for in the world? She has no aspirations. It feels like it's a self-terminating idea that she wants her power back to have her power back.
Right.
And I think that she is ripe to have some type of either sacrifice or some realization that like it's not worth, because it feels like, because it's like you meant, like alluded to, Rod, it doesn't feel like she's like the most powerful witch ever. I mean, she is extremely powerful, but it feels like her superpower is that she's just willing to fuck people over at a moment's notice. Like that she really is just willing to do that. And that is why she lives a lonely existence where her only on again, off again boo is death. And don't get me wrong, that's fine. But like, you know, she had a kid, she had a coven, and I don't think that she needs to be fully redeemed. But I do think that in one way or another, either she will accept this or to reject it. She will be confronted with the fact that these decisions she's made to fuck people over have made her life worse. That this is why she's in the position she's in. And so, like I said, that doesn't have to end with her being redeemed, but I think that is, in some one way or another, that is the choice she's going to be.
You have to
put
show
forward.
the character grows. It doesn't have to be growth towards a positive, but it has to be some level of change that we're like, oh, that's a decision she would not have made without going through this trial.
Exactly.
And right now, you know, I mean, they've done such a great job that I really don't know which way it would go. And I love that about this show. Also, everything you said is basically how you could describe Elon Musk, as far as just his superpower being fucking people over, losing his child, not, you know, like making a bunch of bad decisions.
Agatha at least started off like as a witch in Salem. That's a pretty underprivileged position.
No. Obviously, she's better than Elon Musk. Don't
unless. Wait, did I miss the scene in that WandaVision flashback where her dad had a diamond mine in Zambia, or was that?
She took. I think there's a scene where she takes credit for other people's innovations or something. No, I'm not saying she's the same, but that description was. You made me think about like how we think about billionaires and shit, and I was just like, fuck people over, make a bunch of bad decisions, make your life worse, claim it's everybody else's fault, and then don't learn shit.
Work.
That sounds pretty familiar. Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar, man. Guys,
so this ends with her buying Twitter. This is.
You know what she calls it? It's now Hex, the everything app.
There we go.
And on
Jake
that
Christie,
note,
guys, and give it
up. On that note, man, this show is wonderful. It's been so much fun to discuss and talk about it. I unfortunately will not be here next week because once again, I in being a decent son, or maybe I'm not a decent son with what I decided to do, was taking my father to the Meadowlands for Jets Texans on a Thursday night on Halloween at MetLife Stadium. I have no idea. That could get ugly very quickly, depending
That's pretty
on
cursed.
Is he a Jets fan?
Yes, he is a Jets fan. We are both Jets fans.
Sorry.
Yes. In a lot of ways, he indoctrinated me into where I am now as a fan. So we are gonna go next week, and I will obviously I will have seen the finale, but you will not have my takes for another week. There will be a special post episode where we will do a post-mortem, but Jake will be handling the duties next week, and I'm sure he will run a wonderful panel. And this show's been fun, man. I'm really excited, and I really have enjoyed this show to this point. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of fun talking with you guys about it. So before we go, as per usual, let's know where we follow everybody. Cecelia, thank you for joining us, bringing your insights and perspective. Appreciate you as always. Where can we find you?
I mean, you can find me mostly on Instagram, Cecelia M. Stokes. Sometimes on TikTok. It's lit. I don't know, Cecelia something. I was in one of Jake's videos. If it helps you find it,
Yep.
so
Correct.
look for Jake Christie.
That one did pretty well. It was the ADHD people can't pick Halloween costumes one.
Hell yeah.
Nice,
No, we
nice,
can't.
nice.
No.
And
I do have my
yeah,
costume, by the
and
way. Thank God. I picked. I don't have the stuff yet, but I do what I'm gonna do, so it's good.
actually, I'm going as Agatha this year. So,
Oh,
so
nice.
topical. It's my second Catherine Hahn Marvel character.
Oh, you did Doc
that
Ock
I'll
one
have
year,
done.
right? Yeah.
I did Doc Ock. And then also in the spring, I work for a public humanities project called Holding History, and we'll be starting up our podcast back for season 3 in the spring that I will be producing. So, if you like hearing people talk about, like, if you think this is nerdy, like deeply, supremely nerdy things, check that out.
Wonderful. Happy to have you. And Rod, our pal, as always, appreciate you, bro. Thank
Thanks,
you for
bro.
breaking out the Roderick A. Smith impression
For
once
real.
more. Appreciate you, dog. Where can we follow you, brother?
Okay. So I got 2 quick things before I say where you follow me. First one,
Sure.
this right now, and I hope they stick the landing, but this is what I wanted from Loki season 2 with the side characters, and they're killing it, and it just hits so much better than Loki telling us, "Oh, it's all about my friends," versus the friends showing us that it's all about each other. Like that's so much better.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I noticed, AC, you didn't pull out your Mephisto spyglass. Are you done on the Mephisto hunt?
I'm not done on the Mephisto hunt because for those who are interested in waiting, the week after next, I will be back and there will be a post-mortem on if we get a Mephisto sighting or a Mephisto mention, another Mephisto mention. That will be addressed. That will be
Okay.
addressed in due time. I will not run from the hunt. The hunt will conclude one way or another
Okay.
the week after next.
All right. I just
Yeah.
had to check. I had to check.
Of course, of course.
All right. You can find me. I'm gonna be on X till the last person's there.
Yep.
It's gonna be me and Elon Musk. You're gonna have to take me out that mother. I'm gonna play
Concerning.
like the band in the fucking Titanic. And
Mhm.
you can listen to my podcast, The Black Guy Who Tips, everywhere that you get podcasts. And we appreciate y'all. And maybe give us a follow on Instagram, The Black Guy Who Tips, because we've been putting out like social media posts that are like clips of the show lately. And we've
Your
been
bit
having
on the
a good time.
veneers was great.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Those clips are so crazy. It's like I took 3 hours to become a veneer tech. 3 hours?
3 hours? Dog. Y'all let people play in y'all mouth and boy, woo, you only get one set of teeth.
I specifically was a fan of catcalling your wife.
Thank
Yes,
you.
That
Thank you.
is perfect.
Listen,
Yes.
gotta keep the romance alive.
That's right.
So
That's
true.
right. Gotta keep it spicy, man. And yes, Jake Christie, where can we find you, sir?
You can follow me on Twitter at the J Christie. You can find me on TikTok at the J Christie as well. Doing another tweet every day until I get to 1,000 at least. That's the promise I made. It's the bet I made, and I'm gonna land it.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at AnthonyCanton_3. Follow the show on all platforms at MC University Pod. Get into the Discord with the Patreon and obviously the bonus content that we do have and the YouTube channel. Please subscribe, all those things. Once we get to 300, we will pay for somebody's ticket to Captain America Brave New World. We will provide that. So if you're interested in subscribing to the YouTube channel, please do so. Rate the show on Apple, Spotify, all them good things. 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. And this has been a wonderful show, and we're going to keep it going next week. So for Cecelia and Rod and Jake, I'm Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time.